Hello, my name is Katherine Fusco, and I'm the director of the University of Nevada's Core Humanities program. It's my great honor to introduce our socially distanced film festival, Black Film Fridays, a series co-sponsored by the Core Humanities program and Nevada Humanities. Each Friday in October, we will have seats for 100 individuals to log in to Crowdcast at 7 p.m. Then we can have a live text chat as we first watch a pre-recorded introduction from that week's guest, and then we will log in to watch that week's film from our own streaming accounts. Each film is available on a popular platform such as Hulu, Netflix, or Prime. Even though we can't gather in person, we can come together in conversation over these fascinating films and thoughtful introductions. Over the course of this month, we'll have the opportunity to watch documentary films, including I Am Not Your Negro, What Happened to Miss Simone, and Horror Noir, A History of Black Identity in Horror, as well as the wild social satire Sorry to Bother You. And then we'll end with a Halloween horror film introduced by horror scholar Mikal Gaines, who will teach us how to read for race in horror even when the commentary is located in the film's subtext. Before we begin, I need to warn you that many of our films will feature disturbing images, and some will include derogatory language. That said, this is not a festival of Black suffering. Instead, the range of films will show Black brilliance, artistic mastery, and political movement and debate. I'm very glad that you're joining us this month. And now, I'm delighted to introduce our very first film, director Raoul Peck's documentary, I Am Not Your Negro. The film is a double documentary of sorts. It's both about the great intellectual and social critic James Baldwin, and it's about the lives and deaths of three civil rights leaders, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Medgar Evers, about whom he was proposing to write a book, Remember This House, which he never finished. The film includes narration from the proposal and the pages he did write, cut with footage of Baldwin and scenes from our more recent past, specifically the protests following the police killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. As we watch and discuss, there are a handful of themes you might look for. First, in its status as a double documentary, a record of Baldwin's recording, the film and Baldwin alike make us think about what it means to witness history. In the film, we'll hear Baldwin speaking sometimes ambivalently and sometimes more confidently about his role as a witness to the lives of the three men he sets out to document. On the one hand, we'll hear him chastise himself for having been gone from home so long. The film begins with Baldwin speaking of his return from Paris, where he'd been living an expatriate life. Moved by images of teenager Dorothy Counts entering her newly desegregating high school, surrounded by screaming and taunting white crowds, Baldwin writes, "Some one of us should have been there with her." And so, after almost a decade, he comes home to be a witness nearer at hand. He speaks about the importance of this work of intense observation and recording when he talks about going to the South to be part of the cloud of witnesses. The line comes from scripture and is completed as follows. So this is the quote from which he draws the language cloud of witnesses. "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles." The sin that so easily entangles, the seductive sin of violent racism and white supremacy that Baldwin locates in the heart of America, is another thread of the film, and speaks to the presence of the many clips from Hollywood films that you'll see throughout. Baldwin loved the movies, even if, to use the words from a speaker later in our series, the movies didn't always love him back. Baldwin is one who viewed from the inside and outside. He describes a version of what W.E.B. Du Bois described as double consciousness, as a young boy watching the films of Gary Cooper and realizing that he had more in common with the Native Americans Cooper was killing than with the hero of the film. Nevertheless, and perhaps even more than Du Bois, you will hear Baldwin insisting on the place of Blackness at the center of the United States. And so his words will sound like a warning or a prophecy. As long as America is torn by racial hatred and fear, as long as white America refuses to look hard at what its innocence ignores or the violence that supports its innocence, the nation will be ill. As he says, the story of the Negro in America is the story of America. Telling its story the way it does, the film does the project of making better witnesses of the viewers. Baldwin's book remained incomplete at the time of his death, and he remained resolute that the project of civil rights, and therefore the American project, were also incomplete. As Baldwin writes, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." And with that call, let's turn to the film. I hope you enjoy Raoul Peck's I Am Not Your Negro.